at Median, we really launched this project 4 years ago to really help media executives, and we have like a baseline just for the media. We are only obsessed with newsrooms. We don't work with like other brands or any structures. We really want to focus and help specifically independent media, and we are kind of obsessed with like this mission to bringing out new voices sustainably. It's not only about editorial lines or editorial values, it's also about business models. So we really want to build sustainable and ethical news organization. I'm not going to learn you this fact that this is not easy. That's why we really want to actually to help media executives get together every day, both on like editorial, design, marketing. And to do that, we are also like a non-profit media outlet and a consulting studio. The idea is always to help the newsroom to develop their business through the audiences. That way, we don't really work a lot with media that want to develop their advertisement revenue. We really want to focus, for example, on subscription, on donation, on membership models, and we are kind of obsessed with obviously audiences. You can like find more information on median.org if you want to follow newsletters, how to guides, podcasts. We try to really share a lot. That's why we've created two structures, and we really wanted to have like journalists working on like highlights, new ways, new strategies to help media funders, and not only focusing for example, what the New York Times is doing. I always take this example because for me, every time we're talking with like media executives, everyone is talking about us with like, oh, look what the New York Times is doing. But the New York Times is great. I really love reading the New York Times on an everyday basis, but we don't have the same businesses, we don't have the same audiences. So it's too easy to say, oh, do as like the New York Times is doing. That's why we created this news outlet. We also have a consultancy. We really wanted to help the media on all the assets that they really need, because journalists do really well their job, so we don't want to mingle into the editorial side. So that's why we're really focusing on marketing, design, technology, and management. And we help more than 80 now newsroom to develop their project. Maybe you know some of them. You have both, like as Sophie said, really well-established media company, but also really new emerging ones. So we both work in France and in Europe. So sometimes maybe you don't know the name, but maybe in some years you'll know them. And we do like a lot really different thing. We both work on revamping a news website. We love to work on print products. We help on management issues. You can find like a lot of different information on our website. But what I really wanted to talk to you today is actually a subject that we could talk for hours, because obviously when we prepared the session with Sophie, we were like, okay, how we can sum up all this recommendation in maybe like a 30 minutes presentation. So you'll see I prepare for you some slides that you can maybe go deep after the presentation, and will have some resources that you can actually read on another time. So I'll be more focused on like big recommendations, some key principles that we always have in mind. And you will see it's not only about marketing, it's also about like managing a newsroom. So first, why we want to care about this? Actually, I'm not going to tell you a story about like what's happening in the world, but we face like declining revenues. The trust like is just reducing and reducing, particularly right now in France. We have the rise of AI and misinformation. And oh, maybe Nick, I don't know if I can shut down some mic because we have some. Yes, I can do that. For example, the Reuters Institute just published their annual digital news report that I strongly recommend to read, and you can find all this information on why we need to care about this topic. By focusing on quality, I think that we really quality content, and I think we can really drive deeper engagement and sustainability with our audiences. It's not only like publishing more and more content; it's how we can do better with the content we're already producing, but also how our audience is going to care about what we're going to publish. I think this is the question I always ask to our publishers, like, why should I care and why your audience should care? It's sometimes like it's a simple question, but if you have this in mind on an everyday basis, I'm sure you will like it's gonna help you prioritize really, really, really deeply. So our goals today is like how we can create innovative projects while having an overwhelming amount of information, but also how we can deliver this project while promoting a better work environment. I really insist on this because sometimes when we start collaborating with newsroom, uh, it's like really a hard moment for journalists, but not only for journalists, for every person that work in the newsroom right now, because we have really strong competition, and like the profession is not really going well. I know that it's true for like in France, but also in Europe. And we need really to focus on having a better work environment and change the way we manage our newsroom. I'm sure you know that in journalism school, we don't really know anything about management. And sometimes we just like took like the worst example, like, oh, I'm not going to do that, so I'll be a good manager. So we are also going to talk about like the practices that you can promote in your newsroom to actually like preserve the work environment and your mental health. So you're gonna see like there is some key recommendation. Obviously, this is not exhaustive. I always like to say that we are not like we don't know everything about media at Median. We are deeply passionate about communities and journalism, but there's a lot of things that we don't know. So if you have any experience that you want to share also at the end of the session, please do not hesitate. And if you want to have like to add some example, feel free to share. I'll be glad to hear them. So first, I think this is the first thing you need to have in mind when you're building your editorial strategy and your strategy in general is always put your audience first. It's not just saying that, because I think that when you're in your newsroom, like sometimes we just forget like the big elephant in the room that, oh, we are actually producing content to a specific audience and people are going to care about what we are going to say or write, and maybe they're going to pay only if they are like interested in what we are doing. So on this, I strongly recommend like just inform you on how you could better know your audience. There is a lot of tools and methods to deeply understand your audience needs and preferences. I talked about like the digital news report, but you also have a lot of how-tos to create personas, to draw surveys, analytics, and to ask for feedback. It is central. For the French speaking around us, we just published a book on how to create media and more generally how to create an editorial project. And we not only focus on like one chapter on how you're supposed to know your audience better. It's like the whole book is about that, and you can find like a lot of these kind of resources free online, both on the website, but also there is a lot of great media that's already like helping share these kind of resources. I think it's clearly if you only need to do one thing, just focusing on your audience needs and preferences. Like what we have, like for example, a specific media outlet in this town is not going to be the same as what you are doing in your own country or in your own like team or field. But really know your audience is going to help build your whole strategy, but also help you make better decisions. So if you could have like only 3 unique questions in mind, because I know that we all super busy in an everyday basis, but always ask yourself, what is your unique value? What is like, yeah, what are you going to bring to the world? What are you going to bring to your audience? Secondly, what do our readers truly need? It's not like what you need or what you want to do, but what do your readers are going to be in it for? And third, how we can serve them better. We are like surrounded by great information, great journalism, and also a lot of things that are not journalism. What your mom asked yourself like yesterday, what Spotify is doing, like you have so many things that you can care of, and while asking if you just not going to produce like another like I don't know content or format or anything, just ask yourself how you can better serve them. So really I could, I think, do only this presentation around this question because we could spend hours on this, but really focus on like knowing your audience and their preferences. Second recommendation. I love talking about like editorial product, not because I think that journalism is such like I don't know, it's like a TV or something. Uh, an editorial product is considering that journalism is not only made by editorial, but also by design, marketing, tech, and obviously audiences. For every editorial product you're gonna have, for example, a newsletter or podcast, a YouTube channel, always ask the right questions. I already give you like three, but I'm gonna give you some more, especially about your strategy. Uh, your strategy is not the New York Times strategy. What is your strategy? So what are your objectives? How is it going to help you? Like this, for example, new editorial project or this editorial project you thinking of revamping. Why you want to choose this specific format? For example, why a newsletter? Why a podcast? Why a long form? When is the best moment to launch or to relaunch your product? But also, who's going to be involved? Is it only your newsroom? Do you need some extra help? Like, you really need to think about all the people that's going to be around your editorial product, but also about your audience. Who is your audience? And not like, oh, I want to address like a wee bunch of different people. I want to talk to like I don't know, tens of millions of people. In French, we always say that, oh, we are going to talk about the grand public. Like there is like this big form we don't know anything about. Truly ask yourself, like, who is the segment you're going to address? So what needs have you identified? How like your editorial product is going to bring them value, and also why should they care? It's not only about like, oh, I'm interested in global news or I'm interested in economy. Like why your content is the best content they need to know right now, and also when are they available to read you or to watch you or like anything. But it's not only like, oh, I'm going to send this at 7 a.m. on the Tuesday because I know that every newsletter is doing this. Maybe what you are going to bring to your audience is different that other is going right now. So I gave you like this example. The image you can see is like the newsletters we have at Median. We have actually 3 newsletters, and every time we launch a new newsletters, we ask ourselves some specific needs of our audience, the specific editorial newsletter that we want to create, and every time we try to launch an audience research before every launch. It's not just that we want to ask a lot of questions every day. It's just that by asking our audience, we know that if the idea we have in mind is going to be useful to the audience we want to serve. So for example, that's why we have a newsletter that's focusing only on pure information that you can receive like every 2 other week. We have a newsletter focusing on our like what we do on an everyday basis, like the behind the scenes. But also we have a newsletter that is only focusing on like strategy and what's the best strategy to implement in your media. So for example, we are like a 12-person team, and we know that we cannot spend like months on audience research, but this specific audience research before every launch, it's something that we try to do every time. It's a simple thing that you can do, and there are a lot of again free resources online to help you do this, like audience research, for example. I think that's the other part that could take hours on this subject. That would be like how you supposed to set clear objectives. For every content, I think you should have these main question that you can ask yourself, but also why you're doing this and what you are going to follow on an everyday basis. On this, I strongly recommend you what Le Temps, the Swiss newspaper, wrote some years ago about like how they wanted to revamp their editorial meetings every day, and they revamped this around like one question: what purpose does your article serve? I think this is the best blog post I read like for years. That's why we republished it actually on Median some months ago. And during the editorial daily meeting, Le Temps is always asking this simple question for each article or the agenda: what objective does it serve? And it's surprising because sometimes, like especially when you start to build this framework in your newsroom, sometimes it's like, oh, but an article shouldn't serve any objective because it's going to be like, oh, I don't know if I want to reach like a larger audience, and maybe this article is not good enough because it was not like the most clicked or the most viewed or the most shared. But actually, sometimes by putting these kind of objectives, it can help you serve better journalism. Because sometimes you're not looking for like massive clicks or massive audience. You're just trying to serve your like loyal readers and loyal subscribers. It's not only a way to change the way your work is conceived, but it's also a way to measure success. Um, on this, there are four objectives that Le Temps is using during the editorial meetings. And again, this is working for Le Temps some years ago. For this, you should like adapt this to your own like strategy, your own brand, your own newsroom. But what I think is really interesting is like this is the four objectives that help them to choose if this should be like a free content or a paid content. So, for example, is this article is supposed to help retain subscribers? Is it supposed to help me reach a wider audience? Is this going to help me spreading or brand image, or is this going to help me to acquire new subscriber? So you can find, I'll send you the link, but they build, for example, this tab to have like you have on the left the article, every name of the article, who wrote that, but also again what's the purpose of the article, and it helps them every day. Like, oh, this article, for example, it wasn't supposed to make like or to reach a larger audience, so that is okay, and don't worry. For example, this you can say to this or this journalist, like, it's normal. We were not expecting, for example, larger audience, but we are super proud that it helped retain our subscribers. So really, like, I really like this example of what Le Temps has done some years ago. They just also, if you're following them, they just published a new way to create the article. They just published that, I think, two days ago. It's a way to also add some great context to the article. I strongly recommend you also this read. Third recommendation, we talked about how you're supposed to actually change the way you manage your newsroom. I think we always talk about, oh, you need to be a good player in your team, but how you do team collaboration actually in newsroom and in media companies. Not always like, oh, you're just supposed to be nice or you just to follow the rules. There's some ways and methodology to implement effective project management. Again, I strongly recommend you like to inform you on the subject for the like to how you to use a real framework on project management in newsroom. It's not just like, oh, I'm like, I know how to create and launch project. I always did that. For example, I heard like a lot of people saying like, we know how to launch a newsletter, we know how to launch a new format in a newsroom, but actually there's always ways and room to improvement. And I remember when we reached out to Robin Kwong, who published the project management in newsroom guide some years ago in the US. We reached him because we wanted to have actually the same in French, because when you're looking for great resources on project management in French speaking language, you don't have anything. And sometimes I think we all have this, like when it's not your native language, it's always hard to read, like, I don't know, hundreds of pages that is not your own tongue. So that's why, for example, we publish this guide that really helps you to every step on how you're supposed to implement effective project management within your newsroom. They have like a great example on this guide. You can find both in English or in French. And they took the example of the great project the Wall Street Journal launched some years ago, named the Wall Street Journal Money Challenge. That is a newsletter email course, and they always take this example to explain every step, like the kickoff meeting, how you're supposed to meet up the people, how you're supposed to work with like people from design or editorial, what are the key steps, the key findings that you're supposed to share. And it starts from like the beginning of the project and the end of the project. It's really helpful, but I think it's always something that you can try to implement, even on a like small level, but it's always a way to just having like a real framework. It actually helps to do better project management. Actually, this is something we used some months ago. We worked with Politico, was a major publication on politics and policies, both in the US and in Europe. And we wanted to bring a new way to actually revamp a website, especially in a really short period of time. It was just before the European election, and we partnered with two agencies, TANUP and Anagram, and we collaborated with all the different teams at Politico, the marketing, the technical, the project, and the editorial team to revamp the site's feature, actually to accommodate different European countries and language, but also to have the media growth. And for example, without this guide, I think it would be much harder to do that in 6 months. And especially when everyone has a say, when you want, for example, to revamp a website. Editorial is going to say something, subscription is going to say something, advertisement is going to say something. So how you bring everyone on the table, how you create collaborative and also meaningful way to do your work, and how you always keep transparency in the project, but also how you listen to people who actually work on the website on an everyday basis. So you can find like you can have a new look on like the website, like on politico.eu. But this, for example, for me, is a great example on how you can use better project management in a big established newsroom, but in a small amount of time. I talked about how you're supposed to know your audience, but there are also new ways or maybe better ways to engage your audience effectively. And I think the one rule you can keep in mind is to focus on formats. By formats or editorial products, I like to talk about an example a media we work with for some years ago now with Street Press. It's a French online magazine launched 15 years ago, actually, now in France. It's they're really focusing on far right and especially urban investigative journalism. And what is interesting with Street Press is they are both an online publication, but they really focus on their user needs and how they're supposed to create specific formats to the specific audience. They both have like a super younger audience that is mainly, for example, on YouTube, but they also have like a 25 to 45 group of person that is really reading Street Press on an everyday basis. And just before the last French presidential election in France, they decided to launch a newsletter dedicated to covering the far right in France, named FAF. And what is interesting is they not only adapt this newsletter to the user need, but they also finance this newsletter thanks to the audience. And what I really think what is really interesting here is they not only having like one newsletter, they also now have like a monthly behind the scene issue. They have the weekly best article selection, also an occasional deep dive. And for example, this new newsletter launched 2 years ago, it was like something they really created, keeping in the needs of the audiences. Because for example, they were the first in France actually to launch a specific far right newsletter, and now every big established media in France have created their own, like Mediapart, Libération. You can find them now. And what is really interesting is sometimes when we talk about like producing content, we only have the editorial like part in mind. But what I think is interesting with Street Press is that every time, every new product they launch it with the audience and with the financial support of the audience. I give you this example, but you can find more like on the website. Like some months ago, we helped Street Press to launch the not only like the new newsletter they had like 2 years ago, but a new collaborative and investigative platform to really expand its coverage on the far right. And we raised more than 185 euros just to finance this platform. And what is interesting with Street Press is that every 6 months, they ask for the support of their like supporters, readers, and people that really want for them to succeed to help launch new and better content. What is interesting is like you can say, oh, okay, Street Press, they are just like focusing on extreme far right, they're just doing content on this. But what is interesting is like they're always thinking of what are the best formats they can like serve to the audience to better engage them both on editorial, but also on a economical point of view. I strongly, especially now in France, I think it's something that we clearly should consider, because sometimes it's we all always thinking about creating new contents and not thinking about how we can just better circulate, how we can better send maybe to our audience, and not only just creating more and more content. So I really wanted to focus on the key principle, because I'm presenting you like a really like a lot of different subject right now, and I really wanted to maybe have you like to keep in mind some of the key elements, because as again like we can speak like hours on this, but first always think about the project approach. We are extremely and we are big ambassadors on this, but like having like a project approach is just don't think only about editorial. Editorial sometimes is like what like your expertise, but always think to keep in the loop like design, marketing, tech, because both online on print, you clearly need to think like your journalism and your editorial project are those whole things, not only editorial. Second, know your audience. It's an easy thing to say, but it's a harder thing to implement. But really, ask your readers. Always do audience survey at least like every year or every time you want to launch a new product. Keep reading like what's like the industry is saying on the preferences and the needs of the audience, and not only about like if they prefer TikTok or if they prefer LinkedIn, but always ask them like, are they willing to pay to something? Are they really interested in a more engaged or communicative approach of your journalism? But just ask them questions. You'll be really, really surprised on what they can offer to you, and how they can also help you to monetize your product. There's a lot of things that we could do on what a framework is, but I think that you really need to build your own strategy. Again, you can always look at what your opponent or concurrent is doing, or what like the industry is doing, but just by looking at what your neighbors is doing is not maybe the best strategy for you. So always ask yourself question about your strategy, about your audience, or about like what is or why is the strategy is better for you. So build your own framework. There are a lot of methodology. I talked about like the book or the guide we just published, but there are so many things that you can learn online and with your peers. Team collaboration. Again, how like it's really hard to manage well in a newsroom, because you want to, sometimes we have like a lot of objectives to pursue, but the importance of working well in a team I think is key, and that's why methodology and having clear paths and objective is key. This cannot be imagined without a rigorous approach of like content creation and management. Obviously, when we talk about like producing better content with maybe less content, is not only about like, oh, we're just going to produce less with like a poor quality journalism. For me, it's always like it needs to be like the base of everything. Without good quality journalism, you can't do everything, because we have like AI, we have Google, we have Meta, we have everyone on the place. So if you're not producing great content, content that you are proud of, content that is independent, you'll be lost on the way. And this cannot be imagined or implemented without clear objectives. But not only objectives that you set for yourself, clear goals that you're going to share with your newsroom, with your company, for each piece of content, each piece of like each editorial project, actually, because what I can see now in the newsroom is like everyone has like a lot of different objectives to pursue, but you have again the objective of the newsroom, the objective of the advertisement, the objective of the subscriptions. You need to talk with your peers, and sometimes as an executive, you can maybe talk to your peers like, hey, what can we do together to actually better do journalism and better like monetize it on an everyday basis. And so the easier way, coming from editorial background, is to focus, I think, on formats. I could talk about like hours on newsletter, for example, because I think for now it's like one of the better way just to engage your audience. It's a way to be free of some of the algorithm that you can find with Meta. But thinking about formats helps you again to retake what we were just saying about like audience needs, editorial purpose, business model that is right to your audience and to your strategy. But I think the format approach or the editorial product approach can really help you actually navigating in this really tense and difficult environment. So now I really want you to hear you out, actually. So if you have any question you want to, I'll send to Sophie my presentation, but also if you want to just, I don't know, talk or continue the discussion, feel free, please, to send me like an email. And also for those who are in France, we usually organize some events in Paris in, I think, 15 days. So please don't hesitate. And now, please. I'm really like, it'll be lovely to talk with you if you have any question on this.
Now, I just wanted to know about the fundraising campaign. Who participate exactly to finance it? Are there only the readers or?
That's actually a good question because for me, it's like sometimes people always think that people that are going to give you money is the people that read you on an everyday basis. What is interesting with Street Press, but also with some other media outlets, for example, we currently just ended a campaign with Vert, which is an ecological media. And what is interesting with this kind of donation campaign, for example, Street Press, they only ask for like donation because they are considered the journalism not as a free will, but just like as a the donation make the content accessible to everyone. So what is interesting is not only the readers that read like every day, for example, the newsletters, but also people that support the editorial purpose of Street Press, focusing on far extreme right. So you can also find people that are proud to say, oh, I'm not reading Street Press on an everyday basis, but I strongly want you to exist and your journalism to exist. So you can find like these both kind of targets in the audience. Thank you. And you can find like if this subject is partly in interesting of you, we have like we share on our website of our studio like a big user case on what Street Press is doing. But also if you're interested in subscription campaign, you can find like what we did with Vert, VERT, also on our website, and we share like a lot of how to guide on our media and how to do a fundraising campaign, how to have the support of your audience, because there are so many ways, but sometimes it's just easier to ask them. I don't know if you have other questions on this subject or if someone want to share their own experiment.
I have a question, Marine, because you mentioned the newsletter as being a good way to engage because we are not depending from big platforms that are changing their rules, and we can see that very, very strongly now. Of course, the danger, or not the danger, but how do you manage newsletter with not too many newsletters? We have, for example, we have a newsletter in our team, and very often we have some people replying, please unsubscribe me from newsletter. I receive too many newsletters from Nice Matin. So how do you deal with it? Because the risk was newsletter fatigue after information fatigue is.
We should write a book on this, the newsletter fatigue, and
yes.
I'm clearly one of them. This is a really good question, actually, because I think that as everyone is talking about newsletter, as we talk about podcasts some years ago, but I strongly believe in newsletters, but sometimes we just actually forget that if we are already tired of receiving too many emails, our audience is not that different from us sometimes. And especially, we always work at Median with some, sometimes we just take, for example, just one of paper or like an Excel Google sheet online, and we just list every email a person is going to receive, for example, from us every month. And when you have like, for example, oh, you have like the email that you are going to receive while you just subscribe, or there is this marketing email, we are like not supposed really to send them, but we actually send them because we think that that was useful for them. The newsletter that is going to sum up all your articles every week, or this specific local newsletter that I want to promote. If you see too many, maybe there is a thing about like, oh, how we can offer them a way to reduce the numbers of emails they're going to receive every week. But also, I think you can work on the personalization. Because sometimes, for example, like we were talking about Ver, Ver is doing, I think, a really simple thing, actually. For example, they have like a daily newsletter that is going to affirm you about like what's driving the day, but with like an ecological and climate change perspective. And for example, you can choose to have like not only the daily issue, but for example, only the weekly issue. It is super easy. It's not like, oh, you have a daily, you have like a weekly. Maybe you can also offer some personalization on like, oh, we seen that you receive like this email from us. Maybe you want to receive like another way, or maybe you want to stop receiving this. And most of the time the problem is that it's hard to update your preferences, and if you want to only unsubscribe from one of the email, you're going to unsubscribe from all of them. So really try to focus on the path and like the personalization of both your audience needs, but also what you can offer. Because I think most time you're like, oh, I subscribe only for this email, and actually I'm receiving like this twice a week. And I think we all had this experiment, like I never subscribed to that, so like why am I receiving this? And actually it's something that is really, I think, hard actually to tackle, because most of the time you're just annoyed about what you're receiving, and at the end of the day you end being annoyed by like the whole media, and not only with like one email. So really work, I think, on the personalization. That could really help, and just again produce less, I guess. But it's it's easy to say, harder to implement.
Mm.
If there are like other questions maybe on newsletters, I think we could spend hours just on this topic. Yes, Nadine.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Marine, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. I was wondering if you have any project management tools, especially for newsrooms, something that we can manage online and see more resources about it. Because I'm familiar with project management, but not especially for the newsrooms in the media industry. So can you share with us?
Yes. And I will share with you, like I'll send you the link, like both in French and in English, on the guide we just published, because I think that's exactly the kind of like resources we will all desperately need. Because actually I was the first like looking for this, and I'm like, there was no like tools, or like, I don't know, way to organize my newsroom around that. I think one of the first is to have like clear and really written information. I know it's weird because, like, for example, we just like, for example, having this this online and we're just talking. But what I can see is like most of the time there is like this, I would say in French, oral tradition in the newsroom. Like, oh, everyone is aware of something because someone talks about you about this or this. And for example, when you just start in newsroom, you need to spend so many hours talking to everyone, and most of the time you don't have like a clear onboarding process on what you're supposed to know, who is doing what, and who you can what you can find online, or is there like specific resource center that you can go. So I think to think about like written and to write like every process that you can have, to have like specific, actually like some kind of onboarding process. But also when, for example, when you want to start a project, for example, if you you are launching, you prepare to launch, for example, new newsletters, you need to write every step that you're going to implement. For example, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, who is going to be participating. Not to overwhelm people with, for example, this information, but the more you're transparent, I think the better you're going to be easy for you to actually create the project. So I would say written tag everywhere you can. The second I would say is like to have like a clear identified team. Most of the time, I think that when you launch a project and you manage a project, everyone is looking for the person responsible, because sometimes you have a lot of different person. You need to have like a one ambassador that's going to be able to talk about the project, or like a project leader that can be from the newsroom, that can be from elsewhere, but someone that you can talk to, and you're going to like explain to you like, oh, if you need more design expertise, you can go to this one, or if you need more ad design, you can go to this one. So having like a clear person identified. I think also what can help you is like having some moments like rendezvous and like a kickoff meeting, the once in a month meeting, just to have like a clearer view on like what has been done, what you need to know now, and also to again both on like a oral presentation, but also have like a recap, written recap, because I think that we have the newsletter fatigue, but we also have the meeting fatigue. So if you can like delete some of the reunions that you spend hours in, it's easier. So if you could have like sometime, it can be once in a week, can be once in a month, but to have like some information to keep in the loop of the project, reminding the objectives, reminding like the action that has been done, reminding like what is the roadmap actually, like what's going to happen next. So I think this thinking about like I think you can think like as a line. You have the end of the project, you have the start of the project, and what are the action that you need to have, what people you should talk to if you want the project to achieve. So I think, for example, this is like thinking about road mapping your project is going to help you first, but it's going to also help like your team to work this. And also, I think to have like we were talking about having clear objectives. I think that the key element that you need to have, for example, during your kickoff meeting or during every meeting, is always a review of the objectives, because you need to like the newsroom need to have like a clear goal to focus on, because sometimes people don't really get why we're doing this or that, and sometimes it's just because the information is not available anywhere. So the fact to have like sometimes it can be like even like we use a lot Notion in our team, and it could be maybe like a Notion page like somewhere recapping everything, like who is on the project, why we're doing this project, what are the objectives of the project, what is the roadmap of the project, and where you can find the key elements or where you can find information. I think this is kind of like a notice, like a mode d'emploi, like a how-to, but just the how-to of the project. If it's like written somewhere, it's gonna save you so much time. This is like a really simple question to again like something that could be like a longer response, but I'll make sure I send you like the guide, because I think it's really something that's super easy to read because it's like dedicated to newsroom, so it's not some weird word or something.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. Is there like any other question or suggestion, like anything?
Yes, I was interested in the behind the scenes issues, and I wanted to know what is the impact of such a method, or
It's actually like what is funny about like all the behind the scenes editorial product is that when you first come with that in newsroom, people are like, oh, what should our reader cares about this? And again, when you ask your readers, oh, are you interested in this? People are just loving it, because people actually want to know how you're going to write this, who is financing that, or why did you choose this subject and not this subject? And I could talk to you today about like another emerging media we've been helping for 4 years now. It's like a media named La Déferlante. It's a feminist magazine created in France 4 years ago. We now have like 15,000 subscribers, and we saw like in the every survey that we had that what the people were like interested in. And when we were like asking like some question about like the behind the scenes, why La Défense was funded, like who's behind this media, like where did they get the fund and everything, people are really, really interested because actually they are more, when they know, they are more engaged. And it's like, for example, the About Us webpage, what I can see for all the media we've been helping is like sometimes it's the second page that is more consulted when it's well constructed. Because sometimes the About Us, you only have like 2 or 3 sentences that has been made maybe 5 years ago that is not actually updated at all. And we can see that when it's like explain like what's your team, what's your purpose, like what's your business model, people are really, really interested. And what I can see, for example, it's both true for La Déferlante, but also for a lot of people, a lot of media that we can have on the behind the scene. It's like most of the time it's the email, for example, the newsletter that are most open because people want to know. And this is actually crazy because I think we could have talked a lot about like trust and how you build trust with your audience, but like the behind the scenes and telling, like being transparent with your audience, but also sometimes with your newsroom, it's just a better way to engage people.
Thank you. I have more one questions. It's about no, sorry, it was very interesting. No, it's about the table of the publications that organize Le Temps. I wanted to know it's in every redactions conference, or it's a newsroom conference, or
yes, I'm going to give you this directly. Actually, it's going to be easier. This is the French version. I think we should translate it actually in English because I think it's really, really useful. It's actually something they always use for every, for example, news conference, because sometimes you need to have like the big tab to like and to have a big board on the screen, but you also need like to have it on an everyday purpose, because when you want to write an article like, oh, okay, we need to, I don't know, focus on what's going to happen at the National Assembly. Okay, what's your angle? How are you going to focus on this? Why this content should be made? And this actually question on like what's the objective is going to help you like to actually to build your article, because depending on the objective, you're not going to say the same thing. So that's why they use it, they really think of this as an everyday practice, and actually kind of a method that they need to follow like every day. And I can assure you that at first it was really difficult, because this is really not like something that you learn at G school, or like something that you want to think every day. But actually, when the journalists realized that was helping them defining better content, clearly changed the way they use it in the newsroom. And I'm going to give you also the management guide. Is there any other question, or again, remark or suggestion?
I have a question about collaborative journalism. You mentioned the street press one. In a local basis, we quite often do some sort of collaborative surveys where we sort of do some crowdsourcing on a local level, and some are very successful. Then the question we ask as journalists, of course, we use it for, and we explain why we're doing those surveys. And then the only thing we do when we are good, because it's not often, but we keep all the mails when people leave their mails, because of course it's not compulsory. We send them a thank you with a link, with the link to the article or format. But is there anything else or anything better we could imagine around engaging them, because we are engaged because they participated to this news piece, collaborative news piece? But I don't know, is there anything we should imagine?
I think I think first it's really interesting because like the collaborative is also a better way just to engage your readers, and I'm really into events right now. So I would say that to have like once in a while like a moment that you can gather your community, actually like to meet the people, to have like a also maybe a kind of like report on the impact of like what you have been doing in the newsroom. And what I can see in my point of view is that sometimes we are so much focusing on what we could do online because sometimes just easier. We sometimes forget that, especially as a local newspaper, you can do so many things in the real world, and people are really eager to talk to their peers and to meet the people. And I think that every year Le Monde is doing like a kind of a open newsroom, so you can like subscribe just to visit the newsroom. And every year, like I think the people register like in minutes, and it's like full, like in less than like an hour. And I think that maybe to go like broad actually in this collaborative movement, I think that doing things in the real world could be clearly a way like to not only make the people meet, but also having like for example, if you publish like an impact report, it could be a way like, hey, you've been helping for some months or some like maybe only weeks, but you help us like doing our reports and our like articles on an everyday basis. So here's a way to thank you, but also to keep you again in the loop. Like we were talking about, like project management for me is like the same with readers. Like it's not only asking them for things, you need to keep them in the loop, because at the end of the day, they can help you once, but if they think that is not useful, they're not going to help you like the second time. Any question, remarks, suggestions, maybe? Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Ati. I work at Nice Matin. I'm in charge of subscription. So I work with Sophie and Flora. And my question is a bit related with the one Sophie just asked, because we are looking for a way to know better our readers and our audiences. We know who our subscribers are. We know the few people that are not subscribers, but who are logged in our website. But for the 90% or 95 other percent, we know nothing. So maybe you have some tool or some mechanics that we can implement to know them better. And do you think that we can have some editorial format that can help us to know better our audiences?
This is like I think there's a lot of things that we could like work on. First, I think that there is like one thing that even if you put so many things in place, sometimes there'll still be people that you don't know about. But we need to be okay with that, because sometimes we want to know so much about our like audiences, like we put so many cookies or so many like stuff online just to have like many information on this. But sometimes I think that it's clearly like important and useful to have like a website that is going to be able to collect and share like the useful insight, especially for example if you have like dynamic paywall. Thank you for dynamic paywall. I think registration wall, I think this is like maybe the best thing that you could implement on your website, especially if you're focusing online. So to have actually the tech stack that is going to help you collect and analyze your audience on an everyday basis, and like what they've been reading, etc. But this is like the monitoring part, what you can observe. I think always like the best way to have like and to know them is actually to ask them. And I think that sometimes we only see like the audience survey as a thing that is only for like when you want to launch a new product or you want to have feedback on specific products. But I know that we did that with La Déferlante at the beginning of the project, like 2 years after they launched the first magazine. And it was really like, oh, we want to know who you are. And actually, the founders of La Déferlante were really surprised, because they thought at that time that the audience was like kind of lookalike to her. So they saw that it was like a women who were like in their 40s, having child, and currently trying to navigate it in the work environment after discovering that, oh, the Me Too movement and we are not like equal, etc., etc. And thanks to this audience survey, they actually discovered that actually half of the audiences were like between their 25 and their 30. So when you know that, it completely changed the way you actually create your content, especially, for example, on social media. And I think that asking and conducting a big analysis survey on like who your readers are is going to change the way you're going to build your project, but also not only sending like this maybe like once in newsletter, trying to really focusing on every environment you have. For example, on social media, for example, newsletter, for example, people only being on your website, but also trying to have not only the traditional super engaged reader that's going to answer to every email you have, but also trying to have like all the people that you don't have. And this, for example, we're talking about events. I think that's great way to meet the people that are reading you is also like the people that could like be around you. So I think sometimes events are the best way to know and to ask your readers, because sometimes we have the idea of focus group and like the group that you can create, but sometimes it's not super easy to have like a super representative group actually. And I think that most of the time we only focusing on people that are really super engaged with our content without thinking about people that are not reading us. And you've been asking like why they only read like one article once in a while, and how you're supposed to like try to make them more engaged and convert them into like real subscribers. And this, I think that sometimes I was talking about like audience surveys, so people who are going to be really engaged with your content, but trying to seek the people that not really reading you. And for example, if they are like, especially when you're local, I think, newspaper, like, hey, you're around us, you are interested in this and this, why you are not reading us? And just not being like I don't know, in a weird way, but just could be like, oh, what could be an interest for you? And so what could be, again, how could we serve you better? And I think that's when you think about this, not only asking like who you are, but how can we as a newspaper serve you better? I think it's changed the whole strategy actually, because you're not in a passive way trying to understand who all these people are. You are like, hey, we want to actually propose something else. We want to be different with you, and we want to offer you some great content. What can we do? And this, I think, so it's a different mindset actually, but you can do that both online and again in the real world with like events or meetings or anything that you can set up actually.